E huna tangata I tō tupuna ia maru iwi. I he ai te ao nei e. Raua ki whiti, raua ki tonga e tū ki te pāo ai tua. Kairira ngi te ao nei e. Ko ngā tuku I mata whaorua, te waka, ko nuku tawhiti te tangata. Been teaching most of my life. I've focused on Māori language and culture. I was teaching for about 15 years before I decided to make this a focus, because prior to teaching Māori language and Māori culture, I was an English and mathematics teacher. But I could see that there was a gap in the system, and this would have been back in about 1985, a big gap in the system around the indigenous peoples of New Zealand, who were Māori. And so I made that my focus, and I also made that my passion. In the 70s and 80s, I didn't have any worries about the language and about the culture, because it was very much alive then. My parents, my uncles and aunties, we were all fluent speakers of te reo. But then it got into the 90s, and I realized that the language wasn't being rejuvenated with the young children weren't learning, but so a kohanga reo system was set up in the 1980s. The kohanga reo was a language nest, and that's where we as Māori decided to take charge of the revitalization of our own language. The focus was on speaking language. There were very few. Now by this time we were starting to become bereft in the number of people who were able to do the teaching of the language. So we did our best. The language at that time was vested in the nannies, the grandmothers and our grandfathers, who got them involved in teaching their mōpuna or their grandchildren. Because now the focus was revitalizing the language, make sure it doesn't die out. I was a native speaker. I couldn't speak English when I first went to school, and so it was problematic for us as children growing up in a Māori community where we had to learn English. We weren't allowed to speak Māori at school, and we were chastised for speaking Māori English at home. And so, neither the twain met. I was very conversant with the history of America, the history of Europe, the history of the Romans, and the history of India, but I had no idea about my own history of my people. We were, as young children, 5, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, and we had learnt this song, and it goes like this. The grand old Duke of York, he had 10,000 men. He marched them to the top of the hill, and he marched them down again. And when they're up, they're up. And when they're down, they're down. And when they're halfway up the hill, they're neither up nor down. Those are the kinds of singing that we were doing. Ring a Ring a Rosie, Pocket Full of Posy, and all those kinds of songs. And I don't think that was in character with the kind of community that we were living in. But because it was an English-based curriculum, we had to learn those. At the same time, we had to maintain our culture. We did learn in our own time, we did learn and kept our language, and we also kept our culture, our dances and our singing and our haka. Indigenous people who have rights of the land, who have rights of being citizens within any country and who have rights to be able to bring their children up in a way that they wish, that maintains their culture without fear from anyone or anything. Maori culture has been under pressure in this country for over 180 years since colonization. But that is not a reason for people to give in. It's a reason for people to be strong. Maintain your language, your culture, because you see, you can be in only one place that you will be is where you have your language and where you have your culture, and then you are one with your community, you're one with your worldview. If your language is not there, then you can be in anybody's worldview and in anybody's world. But your language puts the stamp on, and it then identifies quite clearly who you are. Karapuka kimi no anga, Kakaro katau patui te korero awe kotoku aroha e hime e pehiki no neahau awe e pehiki no neahau aue.